Howdy folks, Austin with Beaverworks, and today we are going to be putting together my M8 finally. So this is an M8 with the upgraded engine and blade option. So it's got the 22 horsepower as well as the 10-inch deep cut. As you'll see, there's some things about this mill where if you're going to be getting your mill here in the near future, you may have some of these parts already pre-assembled. So there may be some things here that don't necessarily apply to what you're doing, but there won't be anything missing. All right, first step on these, you get this shaft that'll run down the middle of the beam and is joined in the middle, and it's got this bushing that is really just for helping to make sure it doesn't clang around inside the beam as you're doing those rotations. This is how the horizontal action is translated from one end to the other so that all the operator actions happen from one side. All right, we've got our pipe joined with the bushing in the middle, and it does display this in the manual, but you want to make sure you're getting through this hole right here. All right, so we oriented our beam up, the way it'll perform, and just clamped it to keep it in place. And next we're putting these roller bushings on. All right, so this piece will come from underneath. All right, and your bushing here goes on this flat edge. You do the same thing on the other end with your other roller. All right, so this is our far end, with that being the operator end down there. And we know that obviously because the orientation and the power head will run down this side. So we got our roller all set up here. Washer bushing goes on the end. All right, and then we're gonna have this edge aligned with this flat side, and that slides on pretty easily. We'll kind of have to squeeze to get this all aligned and such, but it'll fit well. This bolt right here does not have a nut on the backer. That one should get some Loctite, but the other ones have nylocks on them. And then, so on the operator end, you'll have your handle that's got your geared cog. So this cog will go on this end. All right, we're down at the operator end, getting this side all set up. Now we already set up the other side. I'll show you that again in a minute. So again, we've got our washer bushing, and then put that piece over the bracket key. Now, if you go all the way on, you'll see, and it's the same on the other end with that bracket. Okay, you're not going to be able to get your sprocket. So before you tighten everything up, slide it back a little. All right, and then everything will go on real easy. Loctite on this one. Bottom bolt's got a nylock. Loctite on these two as well. So after you get all set up, you can back those out a little bit, Loctite, and put them back in. All right, so we're done setting up these ends. You do want to make sure that this geared cog runs right along with this roller wheel. And then these clamps, you want to leave them kind of loose like this, because that's how you'll clamp the beam to the end frames. They're the same, except that this eye bolt goes on the operator end. This is for connecting the lift chain. And this sleeve that will run on the end frame and allow the vertical lift to happen, the one with the bolt and the hole, all right, this all goes on the operator end. All right, we've got our beam all set up and ready, and next we're going to do our two end frame assemblies. Now, they're very similar, but there are differences between the operator end and the far end. We're at the far end now. We got all your pieces laid out here. Now, your longer piece of square tube is your horizontal. Your shorter piece is your vertical. You got the sleeve that will run on there and be clamped to the beam. All right, this piece here, you'll see there's a couple of bushings that allow for that skid to run along the horizontal. And then this piece kind of helps clamp it all together. This is where your chains will roll. So you'll have to take out these bottom bolts so that they can go into this piece that clamps on. This will go on the top of this far end to secure the lift chain. Similar on the other end, but the other end, instead of just having a cog, has the gearbox as well. And then our feet, which will get clamped on to each end here, and then the horizontal chain will come down and get secured on each end here. All right. All right, so we got our skid essentially all set up. Had to kind of loosen and tighten and loosen to get everything to fit well, but was not too tough. Now we're just clamping everything together. All right, so we got this far end frame assembly all set. You'll see we got the sleeve on there for this end. These two pieces where the chain will roll over, okay, they're offset to the same side that this cog is on. All right, if for some reason you've got it set the other way, you can rearrange these. There's 3 holes here that can all be kind of removed if needed. Feet are on. The cog for this end is up here, and like I said, on the operator end, it'll have the gearbox up there. So now we'll remove this plate and clamp the sleeve on. All right, so we got our far end all assembled. We're doing our operator end now, which is really all the same, save for a couple details. So this end, and if you set it up wrong, you could always swap or just reassess, but this end will have this shackle on it. That's for securing the vertical lift, as well as your gearbox will go on this end. All right. So we just set up our vertical lift chain. This runs through the beam, translates that vertical lift from one end to the other in a smooth fashion. So all your operations happen at one end. So you can see the chain gets secured just through that slot and then is fed under the roller on this side. All right. And then gets fed over the roller on this side. And then we'll secure it down to this D-shackle here. We'll use this bit of old dog run wire, as you can see, to run it through the beam. I've done this a couple of ways. Used a vacuum and a piece of P-cord to pull the P-cord through and then feed the chain back through. And kind of the absolute best way to do it is with like a drain snake if you happen to have access to one, because those are just really, really good at fitting a long space. All right, here we've got the chain we ran through, just described, that allows you to have the beam rise and lower evenly from one end. And then you're going to run your vertical chain, and this is the chain that actually does the control. So it'll attach to, this clip comes off, it'll attach here, run up and over, coming down, and then it runs around that bolt, and then back up and clips onto here. And you'll see in just a second here, I'll show you now that we've got the roller chain connected and that chain fed through, we'll be able to lift and lower our beam. All right, so now it's all set up, at least for the lift and lower. And you'll see this chain running through as I go, and that's what allows it to operate all from one end. So the whole beam is rising and lowering evenly. And next we'll do the horizontal chain. All right, the horizontal chain. Now this is a little different from previous models. Now when you run this, so I had to cannibalize my chains to make sure some of our customers had the right length. There were some issues on this first run that have been corrected. But this chain will run up and over this dial. All right, there's a geared cog on the back there, and then run it into here. Now you see I can't push it through. I've got to operate this. This is your horizontal control, which now pulls it all through. Now, because this is getting translated to the other side, you'll have to do both sides at the same time. So you want to set this up with the chain popping through on each end and then feed it through so that it's got the same number of chain links running through at the same time. Pretty good, right? All right, so we got this end's horizontal chain set up. I got to get a little extra chain to get the other end set up, but you'll see we're connected to our eye bolt there, running along, under, up, over our dial, through our gear, and then back down to the other side. And that will allow us to translate that. And when the chain's set up on the other end as well, will translate to the other end evenly. So all your operations happen from here. All right, next we're going to get the carriage, the motor trolley and the tower head all set up there. Pretty easy. Just get set up right on. You got your contact wheels here and here, 2 points on the top rail, and then just one on the bottom. All right, ready to pop on the motor. Now we took off the top bolts and washers, so there's just one bolt. Yes, one nut. washer. Now, once we set it on, we don't want to tighten it down until after we get the belts on. It just makes the whole process much easier. Right, so it's got an extra one in case you put it on a hydraulic auto feed. This. That's what it is. Do the next one. Good.
That wasn't that hole right there, but maybe just.
Oh, yeah. All right, so the reason we're keeping it now, tip it forward. And that'll make it much easier for getting these belts around. One. Two. And three. There, now we can tighten down, and if we need to apply a little extra tension to tighten up the belts, we can do that right here. All right, these next couple of steps, putting on the guard for the belts, putting on the blade guard, and some other things, and let the video run. And if there's anything I need to kind of show you closer up, I will. There. All right, for doing your vertical blade guard, all right, you'll get these pieces. All right, so first you got to thread it onto here. And then that will then slide through this hole right here. Ah, I lost my spacer. All right. And then this top bolt will secure right through this threaded hole. right, so I got those back 2 threaded through. And you'll see this runs into a threaded hole right under here, right in the middle. All right, get the blade all set up here now. Your blade may look different than this. This has got the 10-inch upgrade, which, the only difference really is obviously the blade's bigger and it's got a different bolt pattern. Set of nylocks on the back that need to come off, and then take these bolts out, set up your blade, put everything back together. Now, you got to check your blade swing to make sure it's not going to make contact with your blade guard. If it does, you can make adjustments on these bolts back here, and you can make an adjustment up here to bring it out of the way. All right, jumping around for a couple of things that I didn't necessarily show in detail. So we took this belt guard back off so that we could put the handle on, and then this handle on this side. This is the E-stop on the handle, and that will connect right onto there. All right, here for the horizontal blade guard, this piece will get, oh man, doing a terrible job videoing. We'll get connected on here, we'll show it finished as well, and then bolted on to the blade guard. All right, and here's how they look actually all connected. So you've got those two horizontal guard, push arm, E-stop, that'll get connected. That guy. All right, so next we're doing the battery and gas tank. The battery's just held on with these two. Let's see, that'll reach, can orient either direction. And then these brackets would hold on up the gas tank. So you'll remove the 2 bolts here and then 2 on the other side. Replace them. These 2 will hold on to, yeah, there we go. Those 2 will hold on to your fuel tank, and all together you'll be pretty much there, almost anyhow. Show it again when it's done. Alrighty, battery's all hooked up, connected. Fuel tank, pan. And then muffler. Make sure you put your gaskets on. So this piece right here is the horizontal stabilizer, which also doubles as a board return if you've got the auto feed feature. There's a second plate that'll go on right here to give me a little bit more extension coming down so that I can get all the way down to the height of how the blade's cutting. And this will be I'll show you again as it's assembled. It'll have a roller wheel and arm that'll come out and meet the square face of the log you're cutting to help resist any horizontal oscillation that you might get while you're milling. Here is the horizontal stabilizer all set up. So this contact wheel will make contact with the square face of the lumber or the log you're cutting. Use a little toggle clamp, adjust it to whatever size you're cutting, and go. This can be fitted on either side, so it can get fit on that back side or on this side. For this manual, I've decided I like it on this side as it meets the square face before the blade hits the wood, but that can be personal preference. All right, apart from this chain right here that I got to get an extension for, should be all together. Of note, I didn't install my vertical bounce bracket. I just don't find it necessary for the most part on these. Never had an issue with vertical bounce, but easy enough to throw on. Let's see if it starts. E-stop connected, battery ground. So, ooh,